This is one of the most pivotal weeks in college football, week number 7. I'm going to be talking about the top 10 games for this week. There are tons of them to get into. Starting at number 11, this is my honorable mention. Florida at Texas A&M. Now, last year, Texas A&M walked into the swamp and burnt the bridge. They beat the dog out of Florida the entire game. So this is a revenge game for Billy Napier. Texas A&M's offense has not looked great over the last few weeks. Only 16 points versus Auburn. They struggled to put up points against Mississippi State early in that game. And this is honestly a last-ditch effort for the Gators to be relevant this season. Right now, they sit at 2-3. They have a massive home victory versus Texas, but they've lost to USF, LSU, and Miami. I think that there's technically still hope for the college football playoff, but it requires that Florida wins out the rest of the season. Is that possible? Most definitely, but it's going to require unreal amounts of 50-50 coin flips in their favor, and this is one of the few. Texas was one last week. Texas A&M is yet another this upcoming week. So while I do think this game could be more important if Florida was not 2-3 this season or to start so far, it definitely still has some sort of significance because we have Billy Napier out here basically coaching for his job on a week-in, week-out basis. So honorable mention to Texas A&M and Florida. Let's hop into number 10. Kansas at Texas Tech. Both of these offenses are rolling this season. And while a lot of people see Kansas as a 2-loss team, this game plays into their favor because one of those losses was versus Missouri. Obviously a top 25 team, but more importantly, an out-of-conference opponent. Kansas is still very much alive for the Big 12 championship. Now, they lost a tough home game to Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago. Sorsby, the quarterback for the Bearcats, has been dominant over the last few weeks, and he got the better hand of this Kansas team. Now, that wasn't because of the offense, in my opinion. Jalen Daniels, this offense has been unbelievable so far this season. I think they're a top 15 scoring offense in the country right now, and so there is no doubt in my mind that they can put up some points, but they're playing a Texas Tech team that really hardly anyone saw coming. Now, I made a video all the way back in April calling this Texas Tech team a college football playoff contender, and I not only said that they would compete for the Big 12 championship, but I truly believe that this Texas Tech team could get the better hand of a matchup between SEC and Big 12 or Big 10 opponents. Could they beat a Michigan, an Indiana, a Texas? In my opinion, as it sits right now, absolutely. Baron Morton, despite the injury versus Utah, has still been one of the best quarterbacks in the country. But what really strikes me is this Texas Tech defense. They shut down Houston. They shut down Utah. They've played everyone phenomenally. I think they're a top 15 scoring defense. Their pass rush is what makes everything click. I definitely think this Texas Tech team is amongst some of the best in the country, not only the best in their conference. So Kansas has got their work cut out for them. If I thought that there was a better chance that the Jayhawks could win this game, I would definitely put them higher. But for now, they sit here at number 10. Coming in at number 9, we've got Georgia on the road at Auburn. Now, once again, this is a game where if you are a casual college football fan, you think, well, Georgia's a top 10 team. Auburn's not even ranked. Is this going to be a competitive game? Probably not. I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, not only does Jordan Hare have the craziest games in college football history, I'm here to tell you that the Georgia Bulldogs are not nearly as good as their ranking says. Yes, they are a top 10, top 15 team as it sits right now. But do I think that they are a college football championship contending team? No, I'm not that convinced that this Georgia team is as good as they have been in the past. Carson Beck, look what he's doing in Miami. He was not the problem last season. Sure, he had some interceptions, but I would put the vast majority of the woes of the Georgia offense on their wide receiver core. And even sitting as it sits right now, Georgia's loss versus Alabama came against the fact that they could not pass the football. This is a major concern for Georgia, and Auburn has been phenomenal against the pass so far this season, and it has to do with their pass rush. Keldrick Falk and the rest of this front seven for Auburn have gotten after the quarterback game in and game out. Just ask Marcel Reed, who threw an interception late in that game versus Auburn that almost really cost them the game. Auburn only lost that 10-16 on the road. This is an Auburn team who week one dominated Baylor for the entirety of the game. I think we could see the exact same thing happen versus Georgia. I don't know how well they're going to perform on the road. Like I said, Auburn is a top 10, top 15 defense. Georgia struggled against offenses in Bama and Tennessee early on in the game. The big question comes down to whether or not Auburn is going to be able to put together multiple offensive drives. And to me, that is the massive problem sitting with this game. Can Auburn win it? Absolutely. Will they? Will come down to whether or not their offense can actually put together a few drives that are sustained. Because if not, Georgia is a team that can run the football really well. They did it versus Alabama. I think they had 200 plus yards rushing on Alabama. If they can't do it, or if Auburn can't run the football, that Georgia offense is going to destroy the Auburn defense because that clock will just keep milking. All of that time on the field is going to be exhausting for Auburn's defense, and Georgia will pull away late in this game if Auburn cannot put together a few sustained drives, which so far this season against SEC opponents, they have not shown us that they can do that. So Auburn's coming off a bye. This one's going to be interesting to me, but I have it here at number 9 just because I don't know what this game is going to look like. If I was more confident in Auburn's offense, which obviously I'm not, I would have this top 5. So that being said, they're sitting at number 9. Let's talk about number 8. South Carolina traveling to LSU. Now, this is very similar to the Florida-Texas A&M game. I thought this would be a much more valuable game to watch because I thought LSU would be a 1-loss or undefeated, and I thought South Carolina would be undefeated heading into this matchup. If you ask me what I thought of South Carolina after the Virginia Tech game, I would say they're pretty much the same South Carolina team from last year. And that they are. They lost to Vanderbilt, a game they should not have lost. They lost to Missouri, a game where I can understand why they lost it. A lot of this comes down to the health of Lenore Sellers. He got hurt in the Vanderbilt game. Obviously, that provides a large excuse for why they lost it. Plus, I think I've underrated Vanderbilt all season long. I just cannot get behind Diego Pavia. I think he's kind of a one-hit wonder, but no disrespect to him. He's proven me wrong time and time again. I definitely think he's a good quarterback. But for South Carolina, having Lenore Sellers out for that game and then having him come back versus Missouri and dropping that game on the road, a little more understandable. Another team that I've underrated in the SEC is Missouri. They've come out and shown me that they can compete at the high level, maybe not the highest level, but still. South Carolina, 2 losses. They are desperate here. They have to win out, and they're facing an LSU defense that has been dominant so far this season. This is not your LSU defense that's going to give up 40 points per game. They held Florida to, I think, 10 points. They held Clemson, who, dumpster fire it's looking like, but they held them to 10 points. Versus Ole Miss, who's probably been one of the best scoring teams in the country. I thought they did a serviceable job versus Ole Miss. The LSU offense, similar to Auburn, LSU's offense is the massive question mark here. Can Garrett Nussmeier get this done? Now, I believe he was dealing with an injury, or at least has been. He's going to play in this game. LSU's run offense has not been the worst, but it's also not been great. The big question comes down to who wins the offensive matchup, a banged-up Lenore Sellers or a banged-up Garrett Nussmeier. I lean towards LSU because they're at home. This is their get-right game offensively. South Carolina their defense has let up quite a few points in the last couple weeks. So I definitely think that LSU should be favored in this game by a fair margin. South Carolina can come in like they did versus Alabama last season and almost win the game. Remember, South Carolina was one onside kick away from, in my opinion, beating Alabama last season. We see them go out and upset huge opponents last year, and I think there is still some games to come where South Carolina can beat some really talented top-tier teams like Alabama. So that being said, that's number 8. Moving on, number 7, South Florida, North Texas. Yes, this is more important than Georgia, Auburn, LSU, South Carolina. Why? Because this, to me, is going to be the game that decides one of the two teams that gets into the American Conference Championship. And in my opinion, that is the conference that's going to have the bid for the group of 5 for the college football playoff spot. So to me, this is a college football playoff type game. Yeah, it's on a Friday night, but USF and North Texas have done an unbelievable job this season. I'm actually kind of the opinion that the group of 5 and the power 5, those two labels are here to stay, because I think the Pac-12 becomes that 5th group of 5 team. And eventually, if enough support and money gets around this American Conference, the American Conference will become the 5th Power 5 school. Memphis, Tulane, it used to be SMU, but no longer, but USF, North Texas. These are schools that have shown consistently they can compete over the last couple of years in the NIL and transfer portal space. I think this game is unbelievably important for the conference. These two teams have shown me that not only can they play up against top-tier talented teams like Miami, South Florida, but they can also flat out beat the snot out of opponents that are lesser than them. North Texas did it countless times this season, and South Florida just did it last week versus Charlotte. I think this is the most important game of the American Conference so far this season. I love Byron Brown. They're on the road here, and USF is favored. I don't necessarily think that should be the case. People are sleeping on this North Texas team. Nobody's really watched them play, but I'm here to tell you, yes, they lost Chandler Morris, who's at Virginia now, but they filled up with the transfer portal and NIL. They've got themselves a quarterback who has performed at the top of college football so far this season. So look out for North Texas. Watch for this game. This could be a massive upset in the American Conference space. I love Byron Brown and Alex Golish. This offense has been one of the best in the country. They could absolutely come in and roll North Texas, but people are sleeping on this game. Number 7, USF, North Texas. Number 6 is a Blue Bloods matchup of dreams. And quite frankly, this would be one of the best games in college football if USC did not slip versus Illinois. I'm talking about Michigan at USC. That USC Illinois game ended up being a barn burner. I actually was supposed to, get on and play some video games with my friends, but I saw Illinois was storming back against USC in that fourth quarter, and I said, you're going to have to give me a minute. I got to watch this because, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, it was absolute cinema. It was a phenomenal game. Makai Lemon was unbelievable. This USC offense, of course, under Lincoln Riley, is phenomenal per the usual. I believe they're the number 1 scoring offense in the country, and rightfully so. They can pass and run the ball at an unbelievable rate. And this is a USC team who actually lost a ton from last year. They lost, I believe, Jerry Rice's son. They lost Zachariah Branch. They lost their starting quarterback in Miller Moss. Woody Marks went to the NFL. This is a USC team who had to rebuild on the offense, or at least in the offensive skill group and quarterback position. Unbelievably hard to do. But Lincoln Riley, of course, gets the job done. Where he falls short, per the usual, is on the defensive side of the football. And I said this going into the Illinois game. That Michigan State game was worrisome to say the least. I believe they let up 35 points against Michigan State, and they just benched their starting quarterback last week. So that Michigan State team is not that good. Not that good at all. And USC's defense just could not stop the bleeding. And they didn't stop the bleeding versus Illinois. So now we sit here, USC and Michigan are vying for a playoff spot. I believe both teams have one loss. I'm actually going to, in the middle of talking about this, I'm going to be Googling whether or not this game is indeed 2 one-loss teams Let me see here. Michigan versus USC. Yes, 2 one-loss teams. Michigan undefeated in the Big Ten. USC 1 loss in the Big Ten to Illinois. USC is favored right now, -2.5, despite Michigan being the number 15 team in the country. The one game that Michigan did struggle was on the road at Oklahoma. And in my opinion, they were pretty close to competing to win that game. People are sleeping on this Michigan team. Yes, USC's offense is electric, but I think people are forgetting Wink Martindale, guys, exists. And so far, he gives quarterbacks outside of Luke Altmaier a torture chamber to compete in. I think this will probably be Michigan's best game of the season. Of course, they have to play Ohio State, but per the usual, Ohio State has a far more talented team than Michigan. Should they beat Michigan this year? Absolutely. Have they in the past 4 seasons? They have not. So my concern here lies with Michigan's defense. Can they stop USC? This is a great game to show Wink Martindale is one of the best defensive minds in college football. I am of that opinion at least. So big Big Ten matchup here. This could be vying for a college football playoff spot if USC can win this game and beat Notre Dame next week. Absolutely. They're in the conversation for the college football playoff. I think this is a big conference matchup. That's why I've got it here at number 6. Number 5, big conference matchup, ASU, Arizona State at Utah. Now, this is an Arizona State team that I said in the preseason, they are not the same Arizona State team from last year. Cam Scatabo is one of the best running backs in college football from last season. And quite frankly, he's playing like one of the best backs in the NFL right now. My God, that man is filled with energy. I cannot imagine a day in the life of Cam Scatabo. I mean, Jesus, he gets after it week in, week out, day in and day out. Oh my goodness. But Arizona State, let's get back to them. They haven't looked the same since last season. And yes, they've gotten their footing under them. They've gotten a couple big wins over the last couple of weeks, but they've yet to face another challenge like they did versus Mississippi State. On the road versus a top-tier caliber defense. Kyle Whittingham, of course, has Utah's defense playing at a top-tier level. Now, they let Texas Tech kind of run all over them, but like I said, the difference between Utah and Texas Tech is miles. I think Texas Tech is in there with SEC and Big Ten opponents. I do not think the same of Utah, and I definitely don't think the same of Arizona State this year. So, but in my opinion, this is a top 5 game because this is a battle for the second team in the Big 12. There have been a lot of people that have started to speculate, could the Big 12 get 2 teams in the college football playoff? And as it sits right now, I'm of the belief that that could absolutely be possible. The only way that that is possible, though, is one of these teams has to be a 1-loss team going into the championship game. Utah, Arizona State are both 1-loss teams. Now, Utah has that 1 loss in conference. Arizona State undefeated in conference. If I had to guess which team could actually vie for second in the Big 12, it would be Arizona State. However, they face this unbelievable Utah crowd. This is on the road. It's a dangerous place to play. Utah obviously favored in this game, rightfully so. We're going to have to find out what Kenny Dillingham and Sam Levitt, Jordan Tyson, what these guys are made of. I think they're made of the right stuff. They have championship pedigree. They've done it before last season. They could do it again right here, right now. This is a great matchup. Strength against strength, offense against defense, mastermind game. Here we go. Number 5, Arizona State and Utah. At number 4, now this is a little lower than I would have really put this game on any other week, but I think there's just so many more games that are unbelievably important. Ohio State on the road at Illinois. And Illinois is being disrespected, guys. Yes, they went in and got throttled versus Indiana. But as we could see right now, that Indiana team is actually looking pretty damn good. Illinois is a sleeper team. I said that they were a college football playoff contender, and damn it, I mean it. I think this is a much closer game than people are thinking in all true and reality. Ohio State, yes, played against Washington on the road, but I don't think Washington is in the same conversation as Illinois. Luke Altmaier is playing like one of the best players in the country right now. 390 yards last week versus Purdue on the road. I am so unbelievably impressed with this team. That win on the road at Duke looks better and better as the weeks go on. Pay attention to this Illinois team. They are not going to get rolled over here. Yes, Ohio State is the number one team in the country. Rightfully so. They've beaten some great opponents. But as you could see in their schedule, their wins aren't looking as good as they were a few weeks ago. That win versus Texas doesn't look nearly as good, right? That win versus Washington, with Washington almost falling to Maryland, doesn't look nearly as good. While Illinois, yes, lost to Indiana, but Indiana's a top 10 team. Where is the respect on the Fighting Illini? I'm not saying they're going to win the game, but I am telling you it's got to be competitive. In my opinion, at least in the first half, it'll be competitive. So watch out for the Fighting Illini. They could definitely come out and shock some people. Coming in at number 3, we've got Bama going on the road at Missouri. And I would put this game higher if I thought that this would be a fairly close game, but I think Missouri is being strongly and willfully overrated. This is another team that I'm doubting, just like Vanderbilt. They've yet to play a quote-unquote real opponent. Yes, they played South Carolina. They beat them handily. Lenore Sellers still had a good day, but was banged up to say the least. I think Alabama is a different animal right now, guys. They are playing, honestly, like the best team in the country. They gave up 14 points to Vanderbilt. Those were on 2 busted plays. Outside of that, they pitched a shutout for the rest of the game. Now, of course, people could say, oh, well, they pitched a shutout, but they still allowed 14 points. Yes, but look at the game. Watch the game. That Alabama defense was playing out of its mind in the second half. They created multiple turnovers. Diego Pavia, who's played like one of the best quarterbacks in the country, he looked like cheddar cheese in that game versus Alabama. An interception, a fumble in the red zone. This is an Alabama team that, yes, in my opinion, has the best defense in the country. Now, of course, the run game has been a major weak spot for this Alabama team. And Ahmad Hardy is getting ready to be in the Heisman contention. Yeah, he's top 10 in Heisman odds right now. And this game versus Alabama could absolutely be his Heisman moment. In my opinion, though, this Alabama front seven has been banged up, to say the least. Latham has a major neck injury. Tim Keenan had to have tightrope surgery. There's just a lot. I'm not making excuses, but I am talking about contextualizing what Alabama's front seven has looked like so far this season. I also don't think that Alabama's defensive scheme is surrounded in stopping the run. They don't play the big bodies that they used to on the front seven. I definitely think this is more of a hyper-athletic Alabama front seven that's meant to torture teams and stop the pass, which so far this season they've been great at, outside of Florida State, which was more gimmicky, to say the least. But I definitely think, looking at Alabama and their wins versus their loss to Florida State, 2 completely different teams. Ty Simpson, of course, playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the country, right? He's top 5 in Heisman odds, rightfully so. That game versus Vanderbilt, he cut up that Vanderbilt defense. Did throw an interception early in the game, but after that was pretty much flawless. So this is a massive road test for Alabama. They have not been on the road outside of Georgia and Florida State yet so far this season. Missouri could be a team that they're sleeping on, and this is a major conference matchup. This could determine the second team in the SEC championship game. So that's why I got him here at number 3. Number 2, the season is in the balance. Texas, Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry. I am unbelievably excited to see this game. Are the Chipotle rumors true? Is Oklahoma the team that could come out and do it with John Mateer appearing like The Undertaker? Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. I am unbelievably excited to see this Oklahoma offense with Mateer back at the helm versus Texas, who is reeling right now from their game in the swamp versus Florida. A 50-50 crowd, a true masterpiece of a rivalry. Games that have been shocking, games that have been slop fests. This is the rivalry in the midseason to find those things. There's only one other midseason rivalry that competes with us, or maybe 2. That's Alabama LSU and Georgia versus Florida. And Georgia versus Florida hasn't been exciting over the last few years, quite frankly. But Oklahoma, Texas has been. We're talking shootouts, defensive slugfest, major upsets. There is so much to play for here in this Red River rivalry here. I don't think that there's been a more pivotal Red River in the last probably decade, in my opinion. Texas, of course, has to get right, but they're going up against a top 10 defense in Oklahoma. John Mateer is coming back off of a hand injury. I believe it's his throwing hand as well, but shout out to his doctor that has gotten him at least timelined ready for this Texas A&M game, potentially. That's unbelievable, considering just 3 weeks ago he had a broken hand versus Auburn. So with that being said, I think this game is going to be the most unexpected of all of the college football games this week, and it's going to depend on which Arch Manning shows up and which John Mateer shows up. Is this the Arch Manning of the first half versus Florida? Is this the Arch Manning that showed up against Ohio State or San Jose State? Or is this the Arch Manning that showed up against the second half of Florida or Sam Houston State, right? It's a neutral site game, 50-50 crowd. This is going to be an unbelievable matchup. Texas is in desperation mode for the college football playoff. If they get a third loss, they're out. Oklahoma needs to carry some momentum into the second half of the season because the second half is a freaking gauntlet of a schedule. LSU, Alabama, I believe Ole Miss, Auburn, or no, not Auburn, but you get the message, right? Oklahoma still has so many tough games to play. So I think that this game is going to be the best of the college football slate, but in terms of most significant, it cannot overshadow Oregon at home versus Indiana. This is going to be a game where people think, yeah, Indiana's getting rolled in this game. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, this is not last year's Indiana Hoosiers team. Fernando Mendoza is a top 3 player in college football right now. He is up for I believe it's the Hispanic Hall of Fame Player of the Year. He's third in the Heisman odds. He has thrown, I believe, 12 plus touchdowns, 1 interception. They dominated Illinois. This is an Indiana team that is being slept on and disrespected. Yes, on the road versus Iowa, did they struggle? Sure. Everyone struggles on the road versus Iowa. Just ask Ohio State, right? I am of the belief that Indiana can come in and pull off the upset. But my whole pick and everything else leans Oregon. Could it be possible that Indiana wins this game? Absolutely. Oregon, yes, went on the road versus Penn State in a whiteout and won that game in overtime. But as we can see, that Penn State win doesn't look that great now. That Penn State lost to UCLA. So Oregon, yes, has played a tough team in Penn State, but they've yet to be challenged with an offense that's rolling like Indiana. So I'm super excited to watch that game. This should be a Dan Lanning, Kurt Cignetti masterpiece. This is pivotal. Oregon could be an undefeated team at the end of the year, and Indiana could be a top 3 win for them. And similarly, Indiana, this is probably their bid to go to the college football playoff. They don't have to win it. They just have to be competitive. So this is by far the most important game of the college football slate. Week 7, guys, probably a top 3 week in college football this season. Week 6 was kind of a snooze fest. This week is going to be unbelievable. I'm super excited. Drop which game you're most excited about in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe, please do. I love the engagement that we see in all of our YouTube videos. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time.